WLNS is here for you, celebrating 75 years of bringing you the news with 6 News this morning.
Good morning, Mid-Michigan. Thank you for waking up with us. It's Saturday, April 26th. I'm Karina Prieto, and we're here for you now with this morning's top stories. Pope Francis's official funeral ceremony has just concluded in the Vatican City. It aired right here on Channel 6, but if you missed any of it, Zach Pries is here for you now to break down this moment in history. Zach?
Karina, Pope Francis served as the head of the Catholic Church for 12 years, and now he is being mourned by both close friends and many others who cared for him all across the globe. Let's take a look at what happened at Pope Francis's funeral earlier today. Pope Francis had requested his coffin to be a simple one, and for the ceremony surrounding his death also to be as simple as possible. Songs were sung and prayers were read in many languages, although most of the service was, as traditionally, spoken in Latin. One cardinal spoke of the life of the Pope and what he represented. They spoke of his loving acceptance of so many whom others had rejected. One cardinal brought up one of the Pope's favorite sayings, "Build bridges, not walls." The humility of Pope Francis was highlighted, and especially his insistence to always care for the poor.
I feel he reached out to everybody, and he spread the word of God in a way that showed that it was love for everyone, and not just those that are Catholic. And I felt he had that love for everyone, and he showed it in a very humble way.
Speakers recalled the Pope's love of peace and spoke of a world full of more love and less war. One speaker also recalled that Pope Francis, someone who many would consider to be a very holy man himself, would routinely ask others not to forget to pray for him, again showing his heart of humility. Pope Francis will also be the first pope to be buried outside of the Vatican since 1903. And before his death, he had requested to be buried at Marian Basilica, which is where he will be buried. Many world figures also attended the funeral, including President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. The funeral lasted over 3 hours and served for many as the final send-off to a man beloved all over the globe. The Pope will be remembered for his work around the world to help the sick, the poor, the migrant community, and his efforts to end conflict and war. Back to you.
Thank you so much for that, Zach. The legacy of being a peacemaker seems to have inspired a meeting between 2 world leaders that have not been on great terms recently. Donald Trump and Vladimir Zelensky met privately in Rome before the funeral started. It was their first meeting since the tense White House meeting that ended in Zelensky being asked to leave. A White House spokesman told reporters that it was a very productive conversation. It comes at a critical point in negotiations between the U.S. and Russia. As part of a U.S.-backed ceasefire deal, Ukraine would have to give up its goal of reclaiming Crimea and agree to never join NATO. Russia would also get to keep all of the other Ukrainian land it has under its control. Those are both non-starters for Ukraine, and the country has been locked out of the most recent round of talks with Russia. Trump will be flying back to the U.S. right away, and he plans to spend the rest of the weekend on his golf course in New Jersey. Well, we want to take you now to a developing story in one of the most dangerous places in the world. The Indian military is reporting that the Pakistani troops have begun shooting across the border in the disputed Kashmir region. Both of these countries are armed with nuclear weapons. It's a major escalation in what has already been a tense situation for years. The situation started to escalate earlier this week when a group of gunmen killed dozens of tourists in India. The government there blamed the attack on Pakistani terrorists and then cut all ties with the country, including deporting every Pakistani citizen already in India and cut off access to water that flows from the Himalayas. Pakistan says the attacks were from terrorists, not from their government, and they have described India's actions as an act of war. The reports of gunfire along the border today have been the most significant escalation so far, and we'll be sure to keep you updated as this situation develops. Well, we turn now to the Middle East, where U.S. officials are in Oman to attend a second round of high-level negotiations with Iran. It's the latest effort by the United States to make sure Iran never gets a nuclear weapon. The top U.S. representative in the Middle East arrived in the nation of Oman earlier today, and he's currently meeting with representatives from Iran. This time around, they'll be joined by Iranian nuclear experts who will be able to discuss the specific details of Iran's energy and weapons program. Unlike past talks, the U.S. will not be bringing high-level nuclear experts of their own. Instead, they're insisting that Iran stop all of its enrichment programs. The current talks are the closest the 2 nations have come to reaching a deal since the original treaty was abandoned during the first Trump administration. Well, back here in Michigan, tensions over the war in Israel have boiled over into anti-Semitic attacks and acts of vandalism against Jewish leaders. State officials are now aware of at least $100,000 in damages from just one group, and this week, state leaders announced a crackdown on the people they think are behind it. Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel announced a series of raids in Washtenaw and Wayne counties. Those took place on Wednesday and involved 5 homes of pro-Palestinian student activists at the University of Michigan, according to a Michigan Muslim nonprofit. State officials accused the group of, quote, coordinated criminal attacks of vandalism and property damage. Investigators say all of these incidents happened in the middle of the night and involved windows that were smashed, and on 2 occasions, a bad-smelling substance that was thrown into the homes. These raids were reportedly carried out by local law enforcement with the help of the FBI. Well, anti-Semitic activism from students has led to a crackdown on international students in recent weeks. But now the federal government is reversing the termination of legal status for international students around the U.S., including affected universities right here in Michigan. The records were terminated in recent weeks from a federal student database maintained by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Judges had already issued orders temporarily restoring the students' records. That includes an order on telling Homeland Security to put Western Michigan students' information back into the Student and Exchange Visitor Information System. The order also said it may not arrest, detain, or move the students out of the jurisdictions they're already in without telling the court first, and that the students will not be deported based on their status in the system. The temporary restraining order is in effect for 14 days, although it could be extended even longer. A hearing in this case has been set for May 6th in federal court in Grand Rapids. And turning now to economic news, the government will soon be collecting on those student loans, and the markets are reacting well to the news that the trade war might be winding down. Christine Lazar is here for you now with your Eye on Consumer report.
President Trump says his trade war could wrap up in less than a month. The president says active talks are underway with China, though the U.S. Treasury Secretary says no talks are on the books. The attempt at reassurance comes after the CEOs of Walmart and Target privately warned Trump the ripple effects of his tariffs could lead to empty store shelves in a matter of weeks. Chinese freight traffic to the Port of Los Angeles is down more than 30% from last year as U.S. companies cancel orders. Those student loans are coming due. The Education Department says starting May 5th, it will begin collecting payments for student loans that are in default. That could affect more than 5 million borrowers right now and another 4 million in just a few months. Borrowers in default are being reported to credit agencies, and their credit scores are dropping. Instagram is using artificial intelligence to determine if teenagers are pretending to be adults. Parent company Meta says it is now proactively looking for accounts it suspects belong to teens, even if they entered an adult birth date when they signed up. Users found to be misrepresenting themselves will automatically be bumped down to the more restrictive teen account. And those are some of the week's top consumer stories. I'm Christine Lazar, CBS News, Los Angeles.
All right, well, don't go